At the beach, wedding night. The waves hummed a soft song, pulling at the sand like gentle fingers. Somewhere in the distance, a radio crackled a love song, old and new released album. She was laughing, barefoot, wild, part of her wedding dress dragging through the sand like a forgotten dream. Her cheeks were pink from all the excitement. Her hands were thrown out wide as she spun, soaking it all in. He stood nearby, smiling, the perfect new husband. The kind every girl dreams of. "You're really something else," he chuckled, shaking his head. "First night as my wife, and you're already showing me who's boss." She laughed harder, running toward the river where the waves crashed louder, braver. "Come here, crazy woman," he called, reaching out his hand. She took it, trusting, breathless. He pulled her close, staring into her eyes. For a second, it looked like he might kiss her. The music rose. The waves roared louder. And then, without a word, without even blinking, he gave her a small push. Not a hard one. Almost playful. Almost like a joke. But the ground was wet. The slope was steep, and she stumbled, badly. Her laughter snapped into a scream as she tumbled backward into the raging river. The splash was loud, ugly. She fought the waves, arms flailing, mouth gasping. Her wedding dress tangled around her legs like chains. "Help!" she screamed, reaching up toward him, eyes wide, begging. For one frozen second, he just stood there, watching. No shouting, no running, just watching. Then, very slowly, he took a step back, almost like he was afraid of slipping too. Her hand disappeared under the water. The waves dragged her away like a broken doll. And he bent down, picked up her fallen bouquet from the sand, and tossed it lazily into the river. No panic, no tears, just a tiny smirk playing on his lips. Maybe it was grief, maybe it was relief. Nobody would ever know. The ocean sighed again. Quieter now, as if tucking away a secret. Flashback. Weeks before the wedding. The mansion was too big for one person. Too quiet, too. It was the kind of silence that didn't feel peaceful. It felt like being watched. She sat on the giant velvet sofa, dressed in soft white pajamas, hugging a pillow to her chest like a child. The walls around her were lined with golden frames, portraits of her parents, smiling forever in frozen memories. They had died in a plane crash 2 years ago. Rich, powerful, untouchable, or so she thought. Now their only daughter, the heiress to a fortune bigger than some countries, sat alone eating cold cereal for dinner. Funny, isn't it? You can have all the money in the world, but no one to call when your heart feels like it's breaking into pieces. Her phone buzzed. Group chat, besties forever. Girl, you need to move on. Your parents wouldn't want you sitting around crying forever. Go out, find love, travel, shop. You're too pretty to waste away. She stared at the messages with a small, tired smile. Oh, how easy it was for people to talk, when it wasn't their world that had fallen apart. Still, she typed back quickly, pretending to be strong. Ha ha, don't worry, I'm fine. Just busy planning my life. Busy planning her life? What a joke. She didn't even know where to start. That night, as rain tapped against the tall windows like nervous fingers, she decided to do something reckless. She agreed to attend a charity ball the following weekend, something her friends had been begging her to do for months. New people, new beginnings, they said. Maybe, she thought, maybe they'd be right for once. The ballroom was golden and loud. People laughed and drank under giant chandeliers that looked like upside-down castles. She stood awkwardly by the corner, sipping orange juice, feeling completely out of place. That's when he appeared. Tall, handsome, confident, wearing a suit that looked like it cost a fortune and a smile that made you forget your own name. "First time at one of these?" he asked, cocking his head with a teasing grin. She laughed nervously. "Is it that obvious?" "A little," he said, stepping closer. "But don't worry. I just got back from abroad. I'm lost too." His voice was smooth, the kind that made you believe him without even thinking. He joked about not recognizing half the rich faces in the room. He teased her about drinking juice instead of champagne. "Careful," he said with a wink. They might kick you out for being too innocent." She laughed again, a real one this time. For the first time in months, her heart didn't feel so heavy. He asked for her number. She gave it. Just like that. Sometimes the loneliest hearts fall the fastest. The messages came every day after that. Sweet, funny, charming. Flowers appeared at her doorstep, little gifts, long midnight calls where he listened to her dreams and fears like no one else ever had. He told her about his business trips abroad, his busy life overseas, how he finally decided to come back home and find real love. He made it sound like fate, like destiny had hand-delivered them to each other. And oh, she wanted to believe it. When he proposed after just a few months in front of a sunset, she said yes with tears running down her face. Finally. Finally. Someone had chosen her. Not her money, not her name. Her, or so she thought. Flashes of sweet, happy moments. It looked like the kind of love you only see in movies. The kind people write songs about. One Saturday morning, he dragged her out of bed, laughing, insisting they go jogging at the park. "You can't be rich and lazy," he teased, tying her shoelaces like a sweet, overgrown child. They raced across the field like two kids who had nothing and everything at the same time. She tripped once, landing flat on the grass, and he laughed so hard he almost rolled beside her. "Graceful as ever, my princess," he said, offering her a dramatic bow and a muddy hand. She was breathless, laughing, feeling more alive than she had in years. One afternoon, she came home to find the kitchen filled with smoke. Panic hit her heart. Was something on fire? She rushed in only to see him, wearing her mother's apron upside down, fanning a half-burnt pancake like it was a precious piece of art. "Surprise, my love!" He beamed, coughing a little from the smoke. "I tried to cook for you." Emphasis on tried. She laughed until tears ran down her cheeks. Nobody had ever been this silly for her before. Nobody had ever made her feel normal. He told her about growing up abroad, how he learned not to trust women who only loved money, and how he never thought he'd find someone as pure as her. Oh, how the words wrapped around her heart like warm blankets on a cold night. But surprisingly, her friends were not convinced. One evening, at brunch, one of her childhood friends leaned over and whispered, "Babe, are you not rushing this a little? I mean, we barely know this guy." She laughed it off, twirling her coffee spoon lazily. "Not everyone is a liar, Celine. Some people actually love for real." Her voice was full of confidence. Her heart was full of dreams. And her eyes? Her eyes were tightly shut. Meanwhile, he played the role perfectly. The humble prince who wanted nothing but her love. He even joked once, as they danced under fairy lights at a private dinner he planned himself as a surprise for her. "If you ever become broke tomorrow, I'll still love you, as long as you can cook." She punched his arm playfully, giggling. "Deal!" Behind his smile, a different thought flickered. But he kissed her forehead so sweetly that she never saw it. The whole world watched their love story unfold, clapping like it was a fairy tale. The wedding day. It was the kind of wedding people would dream of, or envy in silence. White roses lined the grand hall. Golden lights hung low, bathing everyone in a soft royal glow. Even the walls seemed to sparkle, almost whispering, "This is what money can buy." The heiress moved through it all like a queen, her pearl-studded gown sweeping the floor. Perfect hair, perfect smile, perfect life. Or so everyone thought. The groom waited at the altar, smiling so sweetly he could have fooled the angels. Sharp tuxedo, polished shoes, eyes full of promises no one could read. When their hands met, they fit like they had always belonged together. Or maybe like a puzzle piece finally snapping into place. The wrong place. The vows were spoken. The kiss was sealed. The applause roared through the hall like a wave. Some people whispered, "What a lucky girl." Others muttered, "What a smart man." No one said what they were really thinking. At the reception, the groom clinked his glass, flashing a smile that could melt steel. "If loving her is a crime," he said, voice thick with fake emotion, "Then I'll gladly serve a life sentence." Everyone laughed and cheered. The cameras flashed again, trying to capture what they thought was love. She laughed too, the kind of laugh that believed every word. Later, when the night had grown tired and the last slice of cake had been stolen by greedy hands, he pulled her aside, close enough that she could feel the heat of his breath. "Let's do something crazy," he murmured, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. She raised an eyebrow, smiling. "Crazy tonight?" He gave a boyish grin. "I've never seen the ocean in real life, only in pictures and movies." Her laugh bubbled out, soft and playful. "You're joking." He placed a hand over his heart, mock serious. "Scout's honor. Born abroad, city walls everywhere, never touched real sand." The heiress giggled, her heart swelling with a strange new kind of joy. Maybe love was about silly adventures too. "Let's go," he said, eyes shining like a boy on Christmas morning. "Just you and me before we fly out." Still half-dressed in her wedding gown, barefoot now, she let him lead her, past the marble floors, past the glittering chandeliers, out into the wild, waiting night. The beach wasn't far. The moon painted silver roads on the water, and the waves whispered secrets only lovers could hear. The night was colder now. The wedding dress floated like a broken ghost across the river, the white lace soaking and sinking under the rough, cruel waves. The heiress gasped for air, her arms thrashing helplessly. The salty water slapped her face again and again, stealing her breath, stealing her strength. She cried out, his name tearing from her lips like a prayer. But there was no answer, no hand reaching back. Only the faraway figure of her husband standing at the edge, still as a statue, watching, like a man admiring a painting he had finished. For one terrible second, she thought she saw him smile. Another wave hit her, harder this time, dragging her under. The river didn't care about her wedding ring, or her promises, or her billions. Meanwhile, further down the riverbank, a different pair of eyes was watching. A young fisherman, lean, sunburned, his shirt torn from a hard day's work, was untangling his nets when he heard the desperate splashes. He looked up sharply. At first, he thought it was just some rich fool playing in the water. They did that sometimes, thinking money could buy them a second life. But no. This was different. This was death knocking loud. Without thinking, he threw off his jacket and sprinted toward the sound. His bare feet slapped against the wet stones. His heart hammered against his ribs. He didn't even stop to take off his shoes. He dove into the river headfirst, a clean, hard dive like he had done 1,000 times as a boy. Underwater, everything was murky and cold. His arms cut through the darkness, reaching, grabbing, searching. There. The flutter of white, the sinking bride. He kicked harder, fighting the current that wanted to steal her away. He caught her wrist, cold, limp, almost boneless, and pulled her against his chest. Up, 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 he swam, bursting out of the surface with a desperate gasp. The beach looked miles away now. "Hold on," he choked, not sure if she could hear, not sure if he could even save her. She didn't answer. Her head lolled against his shoulder, her eyes shut tight, her lips blue like the night sky. Still, he paddled furiously, dragging her toward the shore with muscles that screamed in pain. When he finally stumbled onto the wet sand, he laid her down gently. Bent low, listening for a heartbeat. Nothing. No flutter. No life. "Come on," he whispered, pressing on her chest the way he'd seen in movies. "Come on, breathe." He tilted her head back, pinched her nose, blew air into her mouth, once, twice, 3 times, but still, she didn't move. The fisherman cursed under his breath. "Rich people," he muttered bitterly, "think they can swim through anything." But there was no anger in his hands as he touched her, only sadness. The river gurgled behind them, carrying away pieces of her broken crown, her torn veil, her life. In the distance, the groom was gone. Not even a shadow left behind. The fisherman sat back on his heels, staring at the lifeless girl laid out before him like a broken doll. He covered her gently with his jacket, shaking his head. The air is heavy, black clothes, red eyes. The crowd is silent, waiting for him, the grieving husband. He walks slowly onto the stage, dressed in a perfect black suit. Sunglasses hide his eyes, but his mouth is calm, too calm. He steps up to the microphones, clears his throat. A shaky sigh escapes him, practiced and perfect. "Today, I have lost the love of my life," he says, voice cracking slightly at the edges, just enough for drama. "It was supposed to be the happiest night of our lives. A simple visit to the beach, a little adventure before our honeymoon. But the tides were cruel." He wipes an invisible tear under his glasses. The reporters lean closer. Cameras flash nonstop. She was swept away before I could even reach her," he says, shaking his head slowly, the perfect broken husband. Behind him, a giant photo of the heiress appears, smiling, radiant, forever young. Someone in the crowd lets out a loud sob. Another whispers, "So tragic, such a sweet soul." The husband lowers his head dramatically. "I will protect her dreams, her company, her empire. Everything she worked for, I will keep it alive." He steps away from the microphone. The reporters throw questions, but he ignores them, walking off the stage like a man crushed by life. As he leaves, a single tear rolled down his eye. The world mourns. Just days after the tragedy, the world was still mourning. Black ribbons on gates, flowers piled outside her mansion. Articles flooded the internet. Heiress lost at sea on wedding night. Photos of their perfect love story filled every screen. But behind the heavy curtains, something ugly was happening. Inside a giant oak-paneled office, he sat, legs on the table, tie loosened, a fat cigar between his fingers. A crooked smile spread across his face as he flipped through a mountain of papers. Signed, sealed, stolen. Without even waiting for her body to be mourned properly, he forged the right documents. Fake lawyers, fake signatures. In less than a week, the entire empire was now under his control. The board members called an emergency meeting. Tight faces, heavy suits, stiff voices. One old man dared to speak, voice trembling. "Sir, don't you think it's too soon? The will, the shares, the public." The husband leaned back lazily, blowing out a ring of smoke. "You think grief has a timetable?" he said, raising an eyebrow. "She would want me to keep the company alive. Or would you rather explain to the press why her dreams are collapsing?" Silence. Some looked down. Some shifted uncomfortably. No one wanted to lose their seat. No one dared to question him further. The staff heard whispers in the corridors. They watched their new boss walking through the halls like a king, sunglasses on, even indoors, too important to make eye contact. People were scared. People were suspicious. But fear makes cowards of even the brave. Soon, desks were cleared. Offices changed hands. New security guards stood at the gates. And just like that, the girl who once owned everything was erased like a footprint in the sand. Or so he thought. While the whole world mourned her death, far away, hidden between whispering palm trees and crashing waves, an old wooden house kept a dangerous secret. Inside, the young fisherman sat by her side, day and night. The heiress, pale, still, and cold like a ghost, lay on a worn-out mattress. Her once sparkling wedding dress was now torn and stained with seawater and dirt. Every few minutes, he leaned close, tapping her cheek gently, whispering into her ear, "Hey, rich girl, wake up. It's too early to die. You're not done fighting yet, are you?" His voice cracked between hope and madness. His hands held hers carefully like she was a fragile piece of glass. For 2 whole weeks, he refused to believe she was truly gone. The villagers thought he had lost his mind. Old Mama Tita even said, "That boy needs a beating, keeping a corpse in his house like it's a pet goat." But the fisherman didn't care. Every morning and every night, he crushed special herbs, passed down by his grandfather, mixing them into warm water and forcing 2 teaspoons between her lips. "Swallow it, princess," he muttered with a half smile. "It's not caviar, but it might just save your stubborn life." He told her stories she couldn't hear, joked about marrying her if she woke up, even sang old fishing songs terribly off-key. Yet the truth gnawed at his chest like hungry rats. It had been 14 long days, and she hadn't even flinched. Neighbors peeked through cracks in the walls, whispering, maybe he's keeping her to sell her golden earrings, or maybe he's gone crazy for love. But the fisherman knew better. Deep inside him, something refused to let go. A strange, powerful feeling that she wasn't done with this world yet. At the heiress's mansion, now fully his. The grand mansion, once filled with the quiet dignity of old money, now pulsed with loud music, wild laughter, and the strong smell of expensive alcohol. He lounged like a king on the massive leather couch, wearing a silk robe, gold chains around his neck, rings heavy on his fingers. The new lord of the house. 6 young women fluttered around him like bees on honey. One girl sat behind him, twirling his hair between her fingers and giggling like he just told the world's funniest joke. Another knelt by his feet, massaging his legs with a smug little smirk, as if she already owned part of his new fortune. A third girl gently ran her fingers over his palm, whispering sweet nothings about how strong and powerful he looked tonight. At his right side, another lady clutched his wine glass, raising it to his lips like he was a baby who couldn't drink on his own. One more had boldly thrown herself onto the armrest beside him, pressing herself close, laughing fake, high-pitched laughs at every word he said. The 6th girl, wearing the tightest dress in the room, danced slowly to the music blasting through the mansion, spinning and swaying, her eyes locked onto him like a prize to be won. He threw his head back and laughed. A deep, ugly sound that didn't belong to the charming man who once whispered promises of forever. "Now this is life!" he roared, lifting the wine glass and spilling some onto the Persian carpet. The girls laughed along, fake and empty. But he didn't care. Outside, the security guards turned a blind eye. Inside, the staff who hadn't been fired yet quietly watched from the corners, their faces frozen, their dreams slipping away. But who would dare speak? One wrong move and they'd be thrown out faster than yesterday's garbage. The husband clinked his glass in the air, grinning wide like a wolf that finally killed the fat sheep. To new beginnings, he toasted smugly. And to dearly departed mistakes. The girls cheered and laughed louder. Meanwhile, at the early hours of the morning, the fisherman sat beside her like every other morning, tired, hopeless, yet still stubborn. He sighed heavily, staring at her lifeless face. "You know," he said bitterly, talking to her like she could hear, "if you were planning to wake up, now would be a good time, before you rot and scare me for real." He chuckled sadly at his own cruel joke. He reached for the wooden spoon, scooped the bitter herb water, and gently pressed it to her lips once again. "Come on, princess. Just pretend it's champagne," he teased weakly, his voice almost breaking. Then, so slight that he thought he imagined it, her eyelid trembled. The fisherman froze, spoon halfway to her mouth. "What?" he whispered, heart suddenly thundering louder. He leaned in closer. Her fingers twitched. He jumped back so fast he almost knocked over the stool. "Hey, hey! If this is a ghost thing, I'm warning you. I don't fight pretty girls," he shouted, half in fear, half in joy. Breathlessly, he rushed back to her side, grabbing her cold hand. "Wake up! Come on, princess! You've got unfinished business with the devil that married you." For a long, heart-stopping second, nothing happened. Then, her chest moved. A small, painful gasp escaped her lips, like a dying ember refusing to die out completely. Her eyes fluttered open, glassy and confused, staring up at the cracked ceiling. The fisherman laughed and cried at the same time, grabbing her hand and squeezing it hard. "You're back! You crazy, stubborn woman! You're back!" he shouted, tears running down his cheeks. She tried to speak. Only a broken whisper came out. "Where? Where am I?" "You're safe," he said quickly, brushing wet hair away from her face. You're not dead. Not yet anyway. The fisherman laughed again, almost hysterically, hugging her lightly so he wouldn't break her fragile body. 2 days later, on the rough bed, the heiress was busy whispering sounds that made no sense. The fisherman, sitting close, nearly fell off his chair in shock. "Hey, easy, easy now," he said quickly, almost afraid to touch her. "You're not dead. I have told you that severally." Her voice came out dry and broken. "Where? Am I?" The fisherman chuckled, not because it was funny, but because it was either that or cry. "Welcome back, princess. You're in a 5-star wooden palace. No pool, no room service, but the rats are friendly." The heiress tried to sit up. Pain exploded in her chest and arms. She gasped, falling back onto the pillow made of old rags. Tears welled in her eyes, not from pain, but from fear, from confusion. 2 days passed like this. 2 days of nightmares. 2 days of waking up screaming. 2 days of the fisherman forcing 2 teaspoons of bitter herbs down her throat while muttering, "You didn't fight all your life to die like a wet rag in a river, did you?" Then on the 3rd day, something clicked. She jolted upright in bed, clutching her head. Images flashed in her mind, wild and sharp. The cold waves, the night sky, the man beside her, his hand in hers. No, his hand pushing her, his face, the smile, but not a warm smile. No, it was the kind of smile you wear when you win a game, when you betray someone. Her heart thudded in terror. He pushed me," she whispered, her voice trembling like the broken window in the storm. The fisherman leaned closer, wiping sweat from her forehead. "Don't rush it," he said quietly. "The whole movie will play in your head soon enough. For now, just know you were thrown away. Like trash." Tears ran down her cheeks. Not just from sadness, but from rage, from shame, from the horrible realization. The man she loved, the man she trusted, had smiled while killing her. But her memories were still broken, like shards of glass scattered across her mind. Not the full picture, not yet. And somehow, deep inside her weak, battered body, something new was growing. Not love, not fear, not hope. At the mansion. It was a quiet night. The mansion was unusually cold. He sat alone in the living room, swirling a glass of wine in his hand, staring blankly at the TV. The 6 girls had all gone out partying. He wanted alone time, or so he said. Truth was, he hadn't slept properly in days. He took another lazy sip of his drink, sighing loudly. Finally, peace and quiet, he muttered to himself with a dry laugh. The clock ticked loudly. Tick, tick. Suddenly, the TV flickered. The lights blinked. A cold breeze swept through the room, but the windows were closed. He frowned. But when he turned his head toward the staircase, he froze. Standing halfway up the stairs under the dim yellow light was a woman in a wedding dress. Barefoot, wet, staring straight at him. His heart stopped. The wine glass slipped from his hand and shattered on the marble floor. He blinked hard, rubbed his eyes, looked again. Nothing. Just the empty staircase. I need to stop drinking, he stammered, wiping his sweaty forehead with shaky hands. First, I see her. Next thing, I'll start talking to walls. He snorted nervously, trying to laugh, but his voice cracked. The broken glass glittered at his feet like tiny knives. And somewhere, faintly, almost like a whisper through the walls, he could swear he heard a soft, broken laugh, like someone mocking him. He stayed up all through the night. He didn't even dare close his eyes. Trying to think through. 2 nights later, the house was dead silent, wrapped in heavy darkness. The only sound was his deep, selfish snoring, until he heard it. A soft, echoing laughter. Familiar, cruel. Her laughter. His eyes snapped open. Sweat poured down his face. His heart pounded so loudly he could barely hear anything else. Suddenly, creak, the door to his room slowly opened. And there she was. The bride. The dead heiress. Cynthia. Standing at the door like a forgotten ghost, wearing the same soaked wedding dress, her hair dripping as if the river still clung to her. He scrambled up from bed, barefoot, confused, gasping like a fish out of water. He didn't know whether to fight, run, scream, or just drop dead. Instead, he started babbling, almost shouting, "Cynthia, what do you want from me? Why are you haunting me?" He cried, his voice cracking like broken glass. "You're dead. I'm alive. We belong to two different worlds. Go away. Leave me alone." But the figure didn't answer. It simply passed by him, brushing a cold wind against his trembling skin, then gave a long, mocking hiss. Terrified, he staggered back, crashing into the bedside table. Tears welled up in his eyes, not from sadness, but pure, burning terror. "Maybe if I confess, maybe she will leave me alone," he whimpered to himself, wiping his face with shaking hands. Yes, I must confess. That's what she wants, right? He dropped to his knees, looking up at the ceiling like a broken man pleading to invisible gods. And then, in a voice filled with regret and fear, he spilled it all. "I did it!" he screamed. "Yes, I pushed you, Cynthia. I pushed you off the cliff. I wanted your money, your company, your life. It was supposed to be quick, simple. You were supposed to stay dead." The room grew colder. The shadows seemed to twist and laugh at him. He fell flat on his face, sobbing into the floor, begging for forgiveness. As soon as daylight broke, he didn't even wait to breathe properly. He rushed into a suit, splashed on too much cologne like a man trying to hide fear with perfume, and sped off to the office. Today's meeting was important. The board was waiting to discuss the sale of one of Cynthia's biggest estates, her legacy. He couldn't afford to slip up. He needed to look strong. He needed to look normal. Midway into the tense meeting, while the directors were flipping through documents, his phone buzzed loudly on the table. Startled, he grabbed it. It was the chief of security, his voice urgent and shaking. "Sir, your attention is urgently needed in your office. From the CCTV, we saw someone sitting in your chair, a figure in a white wedding gown." The phone almost slipped from his hand. His mouth dried instantly. And before he could think, he forgot himself, stood up in full view of everyone, and screamed into the phone. "Why is Cynthia doing this to me? We are from different worlds now. Yes, I killed her. I pushed her into the sea. I wanted her dead. I wanted her life. All of it. For myself." The boardroom went silent. Papers dropped from trembling hands. Mouths hung open in pure horror. The man in the gray suit near the end of the table actually dropped his pen and made a small, squeaky sound like a scared rat. Even the security officer on the other side of the phone gasped loudly. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. They just stared at him like he had grown two heads. And then, creak! The heavy boardroom doors slowly swung open. Everyone turned, hearts pounding. The room filled with the smell of something damp and old like river water. And there she was. Cynthia, drenched, still in her wedding gown, eyes blazing like wildfire. The husband, now trembling like a leaf, stumbled back, hitting the table hard. "Cynthia, you again?" He choked out, his voice barely human. The directors all gasped loudly, some even stood up from their chairs in fear. But Cynthia only smiled, a slow, wicked, bone-chilling smile. And then she burst into a laughter so cold, so hollow, it echoed through the boardroom walls, bouncing off the polished floor and glass windows like a demon's choir. Everyone froze. Some wanted to run, but their legs wouldn't move. And then in a voice as sharp as broken glass, Cynthia said, "Harrison, so you actually wanted me dead?" The moment Cynthia's chilling words filled the boardroom, the husband, Harrison, let out a scream so loud and pitiful, it didn't sound human anymore. He stumbled backward, crashing into a chair and falling hard on the floor. The directors? They pushed their chairs away, some backing toward the windows, others pressing themselves against the wall like scared animals. One old director whispered under his breath, "We are in the presence of a ghost. May God help us." Meanwhile, Harrison lay on the floor, sobbing like a child, grabbing at his own hair, pleading, "Please, Cynthia, forgive me. I was desperate. I loved your money more than you. Please, I beg you. Take everything. Just leave me alone." But Cynthia just stood there, her white gown dripping water, her hair wild around her face, her cold eyes never blinking. She took one slow step into the room, then another. Every director she passed froze, not daring to breathe. Finally, she stood right above Harrison, who was now curled on the floor like a beaten dog. She bent down slightly, smiled sweetly, a smile that could freeze hell, and whispered loud enough for everyone to hear. "You thought you killed me, but dead women don't hold grudges, Harrison. Living ones do. I'm very much alive." Boom! The whole boardroom went wild. Some men fainted. One director ran straight into the glass door and collapsed. The security guards burst in, only to freeze at the sight of the soaking bride standing over their boss. Harrison, he completely lost his mind. He kept screaming, "It's a lie! It's a lie! She's dead! I saw her drown with my own eyes! She's a ghost!" But Cynthia only laughed again, a cold, hollow laugh that would haunt their dreams forever. And slowly, she pulled out a small recorder from under her gown, a device that had captured every single word Harrison confessed. "Smile for the cameras, husband. Your real honeymoon is just beginning, and trust me, it's going to be a long stay in prison." The whole boardroom was still shaking when bang! The door slammed open and in rushed the fisherman, followed by 2 police officers. The fisherman took one look at Harrison, curled on the floor like a cockroach, then burst into loud, mocking laughter. "Cynthia, you can't die now," he said, wiping tears of laughter from his eyes. "Because if this is how your ghost looks, the whole city will run mad by midnight." Everyone stared at him, confused, sweating, and scared, but he didn't care. He walked confidently into the room, swinging his arms like a man who just won a lottery. The police officers didn't waste time. They dragged Harrison up roughly, slapping handcuffs on his shaking hands. One officer said, loud and clear, "You're under arrest for attempted murder, fraud, and theft. Anything you say now will only make you look more stupid." Harrison screamed and struggled, but the fisherman just shook his head and said sarcastically, "Ah, husband of the year! You wanted money so bad, now enjoy free food in prison." Cynthia stood still, not even flinching, watching Harrison being dragged away like the worthless man he was. The directors? They cleared the way immediately, some even bowing slightly as Cynthia passed. Step by step, she walked out, in her wedding gown, her face calm, proud, and powerful. She didn't look back once. Behind her, people whispered, "She's alive! She's a queen! God fought for her!" The fisherman caught up with her outside and said, laughing, "You see, I told you. You are too stubborn to die. Even death fears you." Cynthia finally smiled, a real, small, sweet smile, the first smile in a long time. Months had passed. The world had moved on, but Cynthia's name still echoed in every corner. She had won. She got her company back. She got her estates back. She even got public sympathy. She was now a living legend. As for Harrison, he was rotting in a dirty prison cell exactly where he belonged, once a proud man. Now just a number behind cold iron bars. The world clapped for Cynthia. But at night, when the cameras were gone and the lights were off, Cynthia couldn't sleep. She would close her eyes and hear his voice. Jason, the fisherman who stayed by her side when even life tried to leave her. She remembered his silly jokes. "Wake up, Jur. Even dead people are tired of you lying down." His poems. "Rise, rise, daughter of the waves, for the river has refused to carry you." His stubbornness. Giving her 2 teaspoons of bitter herbs every single day, even when everyone else had given up. No amount of luxury could fill the space Jason had carved into her heart. One quiet morning, without telling anyone, Cynthia packed a small bag. She wore simple clothes, no fancy jewelry, no flashing cars, just herself and her heart. She traveled to the small village with dusty roads and quiet houses where Jason still lived. When she found his little wooden house, she stood outside for a moment, smiling at how small and worn out it was. But it felt more like home than any mansion she owned. She knocked lightly. Jason opened the door, and for a moment they just stared at each other. both remembering the storm they had survived together. Then they laughed, the same way they used to laugh, wild, loud, free. They sat outside under the old mango tree. They talked about the past. They laughed about how they fooled Harrison with the ghost idea. Jason teased her. "Madam Ghost, you almost made me pee my trousers that day." Cynthia threw her head back and laughed like a child. When it was time for her to leave, she stood up, took a few steps, then turned back to face him. Her voice shook a little, but her eyes were sure. "Jason," she called softly. He looked up, surprised. "Please come to the city with me. Let's build together what you fought so hard to rescue from destruction." "I love you, Jason." For a moment, Jason just stood there, blinking like he wasn't sure if he was dreaming or awake. Then a slow, beautiful smile spread across his face. Without a word, he walked toward her, wiped a tear that had escaped her eye, and said in his usual teasing voice, "Ah, madam, you finally know good thing when you see it. Let's go build an empire, Jor." And hand in hand, they walked back toward the future. This time, not just to survive, but to truly live together. Hello, besties. What a story we just shared today. From betrayal to survival to a new beginning built on true love and loyalty. Here's a beautiful quote for you. Sometimes the people who save you are the ones you never saw coming, but they are exactly what your soul was crying for. And remember, besties, true love doesn't betray, it protects. Greed destroys, but kindness builds. Moral lessons from today's story. Number 1, never let loneliness blind you to a person's true character. Number 2, greed may give fast success, but it always ends in destruction. Number 3, a grateful heart always finds happiness. Number 4, real love is shown through actions, not fake promises. My little advice to you, besties, before trusting someone with your life, your love, or your future, watch their little actions when no one is watching. And always remember, God has a way of bringing helpers when you least expect. If you enjoyed Cynthia and Jason's beautiful journey, please hit the subscribe button, like, and drop your comments below. Tell me, besties, which part of this story touched you the most? Let's celebrate loyalty, true love, and second chances in the comments section. Thank you for always supporting. I love you all, and see you in the next story.